Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Linda Zablotsky, and I'm an education program consultant with Let's Go Learn. Today, we're going to present San Bernardino and their dramatic transformation of their special education department. We have Dr. Juana Lundy. She is the SELPA director of the special education department. Jackie Willis is a program specialist, and Barbie Rolland is the assistant director of Instructional Services. Just a little housekeeping. If you'd like to chat in questions, we'd love to see your questions. Just use the dashboard in the upper right. We're going to save some time at the end of today's webinar so we can answer all of your wonderful questions. We'll also be sharing a recording of today's webinar. We'll be sending it in a few days, so you'll be able to have access on demand, and you'll also be able to share. I want to let you know we also have Richard Capone, our co-founder and our CEO on today's panel, and Alicia Atkinson. She is the Senior Customer Success Specialist. We both work with San Bernardino. And I'd also like to introduce today Phyllis Wolfram. She's the Executive Director of the International Case. Take it away, Phyllis.
Thank you, Linda. It is such a pleasure to be with Let's Go Learn once again to bring some wonderful news from San Bernardino City schools. I cannot wait to hear what all you have to share with not only our members, but special ed leaders from across the country that we know are joining us today. But first, I need to first and foremost thank Richard for the great partnership that CASE has with Let's Go Learn, for the support that they have shown all of our CASE members and special ed leaders across the country to provide those supports and those resources with such a great product, and not just a great product, but a great friend to special education. So Richard, a very special thank you to you and all your staff. And from that, again, thank you on behalf of CASE for joining us, and I'm going to toss it back to you all. I can't wait to hear all the exciting information that you're going to share with us today.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and switch the presentation over to you guys. Let's see here.
Take it away, Dr. Lundy. Okay, so good morning, everybody. It looks like I'm listed as Barbie Rolland, but I'm Dr. Lundy, the Director of Special Education here in San Bernardino. And today I have with me my wonderful team. I have Ms. Barbie Rolland, who is our Assistant Director of Instructional Programs, and Ms. Jackie Willis, who is a Program Specialist for us also. I'm focusing on instructional programs. So next slide. So with that, today, we want to look at our learning intentions. So for today's, for the purpose of today's presentation, we want to look at how we, as a district, focused on using the Plan, Do, Study, Act cycle to implement Let's Go Learn and closing the achievement gap in both ELA and mathematics for our students. To build, we also want to look at how we were able to build collective teacher efficacy to promote a data-driven, not just school, but as a district as a whole. And then finally, we're going to talk to you about how we have implemented a reflective coaching model with a feedback cycle to improve teacher clarity and improve our student outcomes. So in order to do that, we wanted to talk to you a little bit about San Bernardino so that you could have context. And with that, San Bernardino is one of the largest districts in the state of California. So being a large urban district where our this slide kind of talks to you about like where our students come from and some of the challenges that we have here as a district. Looking at, we have over 52 elementary schools, 10 middle schools, 9 high schools, 3 special education schools, and the district serves approximately 50,000 students with 6,321 of them being special education. But more importantly, San Bernardino is a place where the district has typical challenges that would face any large district, but really based on the current census data, San Bernardino also have one of the highest percentage of population of students and families living in poverty in the United States, with a percentage exceeding 34%. And this is reflected in the fact that over 90% of our families are all with free and reduced lunch. In addition, the socioeconomic challenges that we face in our community have been consistently found as one of the highest crime rate areas in the country. And according to recent statistics provided by the U.S. Department of Justice, San Bernardino has a violent crime rate nearly 5 times the national average, and is often described as one of the most dangerous places to live in the state and the country. So with that, as educators, these factors require us to maintain a dynamic approach to meeting the needs of our most vulnerable students. So with these social economic challenges, it's important that we utilize a diversified approach to how we can make sure that our students are getting their needs met, especially in our special education classes. So in our next slide, to talk a little bit about the work. So within the work, we utilized the Plan, Do, Study, Act model, because we knew that the problem that we are embarking on is much larger than what maybe someone has to deal with in a neighboring district. And with that, even in how I've organized my department, I've allocated people specifically to Tier 1 instruction, because one of the foundational problems as we look at special education is sometimes we forget the instructional piece and we look solely at the disability. So in our model, we started with, do we have good Tier 1 instruction? And that's kind of where Let's Go Learn came into play. How do we then get the data that we need to, number one, show that we are looking at this strategically, and then number two, having that extra added piece that allows us to then, once we diagnose, actually use those things to move our students along in a exponential fashion. So knowing that the problem is really complex, we took a departmental approach in addressing our problem of practice with the implementation of Let's Go Learn. What attracted us to Let's Go Learn is how it made it easy to personalize learning. The adaptive program is really designed to close student gaps, which directly aligns not only to our overall goal, but it also is being able to adjust the learning loss that our students experience and are still currently experiencing as a result of COVID. And the data it provides is actionable, and it ensures equity and legal compliance for our students with IEPs. However, as you know, with any implementation or change idea, it involves a range of moving parts, including schools, classroom teachers, mindsets, knowledge of pedagogy, and content. So we had to take a strategic approach to how we implemented Let's Go Learn into our larger system of change. And that's how I feel like we were able to get what we're calling our transformational kind of dramatic results. And I'm gonna let my team, starting with Roland, elaborate on how the team was able to do that.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Barbie Rowland, and I'm the Assistant Director for Instructional Services. So what you see in front of you is really our current state. We wanted to really focus on Instructional Core by creating a goal that is directly observable, where we know that what our teachers and our students are doing, and what is the content that we are observing. So in this case, we are looking at math and ELA. We also want to make sure that it's actionable. It has to be within our district's control in terms of what we can improve in real time. So we also want a goal that is that connects to a broader strategy of improvement, and one that requires deep learning. So we will give you a few minutes to read our data statement and what our growth target is for this year. So in the next few slides, we will go into deeper detail based on the cycles of improvement. So starting with the plan phase of our improvement cycle, we really developed a process and established potential materials needed to establish our timelines and get to know what our clear goals and measures will be. So our planning process really began last summer. Our department team, which consisted of program specialists like Jackie that you see right here, as well as our teachers on assignment, they worked really hard to align Let's Go Learn with our district scope and sequence, which is basically our district's pacing guide. We aligned it according to the Common Core standards that are targeted within the curriculum guides, thus establishing our very own special ed lesson support series. So since we started piloting LGL and distance learning during the COVID-19 shutdown, we were easily able to identify our teacher cohorts in terms of how they were adopting the program. whether they're innovators, early adopters, all the way to our laggards, because part of promoting that change, we really needed to recognize our teachers' strengths and weaknesses in terms of professional practice, and to really get to know where our teams stood in the curve of adopting Let's Go Learn. So this really assisted us in differentiating Let's Go Learn in terms of our implementation process and identifying what our professional development will be moving forward. So we started our cycles of improvement with backwards planning in July. The visual that you see on the left-hand side of your screen is the digital calendar that our teams used to calendar our daily adopted curriculum intervention lessons with the corresponding Let's Go Learn based on the standard that's being taught at the moment. They also calendared 3 diagnostic assessments within our own district assessment calendar to ensure that they already know what to expect when those testing windows will open. This backwards planning process really allowed us to give them a release of responsibility during the first instructional cluster.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jackie Willis, a program specialist for K-8 on the instructional side of the special education department. I was a special day class teacher for multi-grade level classes for over 10 years, and then an RSP teacher, again, with multi-grade level students. So what I want to show you here is this is where we're in our do phase of the improvement cycle. This is where we really focus on the delivery as planned. This is where the implementation of the action takes place. So what you're looking at here is the model of the system that we're using to take the Let's Go Learn and the standards-based practice and coach our teachers in using those programs in the classroom. So let me tell you a little bit about what that looks like. We've trained teachers side-by-side coaching we're allowing them to take this system and make it their own, but this is the model that we want them to use, okay? So with the department initiatives targeting math and the use of Let's Go Learn, we wanted to first ensure that they have access to grade level standards, and second, ensure that they're using interventions and individualized supports to personalize learning and close those students' gaps. So we first worked with Let's Go Learn to pull all the lessons within their program that are standards-based at each grade level, and we taught teachers how to utilize them within the whiteboard feature of Let's Go Learn. So when you look at this system that we have here, it looks like what it is our math time is we're broken them down into centers. So you'll see in the middle, that's where the teacher is teaching core standards. Over on the right, this is where we've taken the lessons that we pulled with Let's Go Learn that are standard based, and we've taught them how to use the whiteboard feature with their paraprofessional to provide that intervention within the Let's Go Learn program. On the left, this is an independent station, and this is after the students have completed the assessments that Barbie spoke about, the ones that they did at the initial beginning of the year. There are prescriptive lessons that have been assigned to those students where they can further get practice on the areas of need, fulfilling those gaps. So the other way that we are supporting our teachers within this system with Let's Go Learn is that we are using it for progress monitoring and ongoing formative assessment. So teachers can assign smaller sub-skill tests, which is usually about 3 to 5 questions in total. So it's a shorter amount of time, but it's specific to the standard and where they need to they can focus on where they need to revisit on specific topics and update or make progress towards goals. Okay, with that, I'll pass it back to you, Barbie.
All right, so next within our improvement cycle is the study phase. So which is generally when our teams analyze the Let's Go Learn data and reflect on the results alongside the teachers through data chats within our district MLU meetings, as well as ongoing individually when we schedule it at the site level. So the main goal really here is to think about what's behind all the numbers, using data to inform instruction. So during such sessions, our teachers were provided with a data sheet similar to what you see at the top right there. And they basically go through an improvement cycle on their collectively with the group of teachers. They just go through research, recall, reflect, and respond. They then share best practices that will assist them with identifying any necessary adjustments within their teaching practices. So this collaborative process really promoted a collective teacher efficacy, since they see themselves as part of the team, and then they're working together for all students. So at the district level, we also created what we call the SPED data dashboard. And this became our accountability piece that ensures that we are meeting our targeted areas of need, that problem of practice. We've also included our district's universal screener, which in this case is NWEA, for comparison purposes with Let's Go Learn. So the data that you see is broken down per special ed program within our district. You also get an overall site data of our special education students. Furthermore, it is even broken down per cluster area, since as you can tell, our district is large, and we broke it down per point of contact. So we are really looking at accountability at all those levels.
Okay, so our final stage here is the ACT stage. So this is where we are right now. So we have taught the system and we've been practicing within our classrooms, utilizing the programs and the systems that we've created. But now we are meeting, so we do it two ways. We meet with our sites, school level, which can have a variety of teachers. And we're using this as a coaching and feedback cycle. We take the data from Let's Go Learn, we review it, we look at what's worked, what's not working. And this is really just a great a spot for revision of the process and the materials that we're utilizing, and thinking about how we can do it better, how can we get better to really support our students. The other way that we're also using this is we come together once a month, and instead of just by site, we put job-alike teachers together. So we may have our primary SDC teachers together, upper grade SDC, our RSP teachers, which really allows them to share ideas and feedback, how they're utilizing Let's Go Learn within the systems that we're creating and what's been effective. And this part of the model has really been about building relationships and creating a place where the teachers with common experiences can share and foster a deeper relationship to build trust and build on our instructional practices.
We wanted to just share with you like a little snippet. So at the end, we're going to give you a resource sheet that all the things, because we're kind of running through it, but all the things that we talked about are actual data sheets, our actual processes that we use, and our actual templates. We're going to share with you at the end of the webinar so that you can have access to them as well. And this is just a little snippet of a larger video that where our teachers kind of share their experiences and our administrators with Let's Go Learn as well. Take it away, Barbie.
Hi, my name is Nicole Dunn, and I teach 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students in mild moderate SDC. I use Let's Go Learn during whole group instruction. I really like that it's differentiated. With minimal prep to set expectations, students are well on their way to achieving in reading and math with Let's Go Learn.
My name is Alexis Cerna. I teach elementary special education RSP. I use Let's Go Learn in whole group. I enjoy using Let's Go Learn in my classroom because my students just get so excited about learning. They also end up singing the songs from their EDGE lessons for days. And so I definitely will continue adding Let's Go Learn into my lessons because I see that my students are learning so much and they're having a fun time doing it.
Yeah. So hello, I'm James Sauer, Vice Principal at Shannonville Middle School, and I oversee the special ed department at our site. And we've been working with Let's Go Learn this year in our special ed program, and the data, the robust data that we are able to receive or kind of analyze. But the biggest thing is the kids having an opportunity to work on their targeted or their prescribed program. So getting the kids to get an opportunity to work on what they need kind of creates that equity that we're trying to develop here through our district and at our site.
Hi, my name is Derek Bolte from San Gorgonio High School. I teach STC math, and I have a grade range from 9th to 12th, and I incorporate Let's Go Learn in my daily instruction. I first start with direct instruction that leads into Let's Go Learn Padlocks, which are utilized to help the students and their IEPs meet their goals. The individualized instruction that occurs with Let's Go Learn attacks each deficit per individual student that allows them to concentrate and work on those deficits towards mastery of those certain components and those math skills.
Thank you for allowing us to share once again. And I'm not sure, we usually use Zoom, but in the chat, we will drop the resource so that you can have access to anything that we kind of referenced throughout our presentation. And we'll turn it back over to our wonderful partners at Let's Go Learn for, I guess, the Q&A portion of the presentation.
Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation today. And I really liked how you incorporated your decision-making process, which you included the teachers as well. I'd love to learn about, you've talked about the data to drive instruction towards the standards. How are you using Let's Go Learn to facilitate professional development or your conversations in your PLCs?
So I'm going to let Barbie and Jackie answer that because that's literally their work. That is what they do every time. Our whole kind of, because we develop a professional development plan for the entire year. So we pull all of our program specialists together and we sit, because our problem actually prior to adopting Let's Go Learn is that we didn't have baseline and we didn't have a way to track what our students were doing. So the first thing was to, after we went through like the phase of like, just, hey, try this out. Let's see how you think this works. Then we moved into, this is kind of a mandate and we want everybody to take this assessment at the beginning of the year, and we're gonna hound you and harass you until you actually do it, so that we can have baseline data to be able to at least have a starting point so that we know, and that is kind of what led into our dashboard. And so with each PD that is presented to the teachers, we bring that data to them every single time. So we have data chats, we have our lesson design series that is created with our district. We've incorporated the actual Let's Go Learn lessons and the standards into that, so that we've embedded it into our district practices. But I can let Barbie and because I get excited about it, so I'll just start talking. But I'll let my practitioners actually speak to it a little deeper.
So I'm going to speak of it at the district level. So we really started this work with the MLUs because that's the one place where we can get all of our special ed teachers all together, where we're not going to see anybody within that.
And just so sorry, because MOU is particular to us, that is our district-wide PD day, where we can pull all of our specialists at the same time in one space.
Yes, so they having them available within that space, we were able to really establish and explain what our common goal is with Let's Go Learn. So we started explaining our data pieces where, we can collect all the numbers that we want, but unless we do something with it, then it's meaningless, right? So we wanted to showcase how this process was going to work. And most of the time, as you know, being a teacher in the classroom as well, we often feel like as special ed teachers, we're never really part of that PLC. So knowing that we have a collective group of special ed teachers coming together in one place is really what jump-started the process. So then I'm going to give it to Jackie.
Yeah, so then to further build on that, we began going to the sites and meeting with the site teams. And there we would do first what was the research and recall. So we would pull that data and we look at individual strands, and we would dig so deep with Let's Go Learn because we could even click on the strand and go and look at the sub-skills within the strands and really use that to reflect then and then to create the action steps. So then as a group at the site, we would set our action steps and our intentions and how we were going to move forward, knowing that we have our next assessment cycle for the Adam and Dora coming at the end of November. So that would be our next time. So now we're all really excited because in December, we're going to do our next data pull and we're going to see, again, we'll reflect, right, and research and recall, but we're going to see if what we put as our action items at the site based on what we've trained them to do, if it worked and how effective it was. So they're all really getting very excited for that piece of it.
So I have a follow-up question for Jackie. Could I jump in real quick while she's talking about that?
Yeah.
So Jackie and Dr. Lundy, one of the things that I think as a former special ed director, we know is that sometimes getting that buy-in with teachers when you start a new project is sometimes difficult. I think that we also know that prior to initiating something like Let's Go Learn, we have seen that we have great data collectors and not so great data collectors in our teachers, and it just depends on what they've learned and sometimes their training. So I preface that my question with that to say, Jackie, when you were sitting down and you go into those groups of teachers, what do you see as the biggest takeaway for your teachers or maybe even for students and families when you're sharing that data and you're reviewing that data with that team? Like, what's the big aha? Did you have any of those with some of your teachers, you know, who really began to understand that data because of the tool that you were using with them?
Yeah, so I think the biggest place for that is how, like I said, in depth Let's Go Learn allows us to get with the data. So it's not just a surface data. You know, a lot of times we do assessments where it'll say it's collective, it's a whole score, right, for reading comprehension, or a whole score for components of math. And what I felt like really brought them in, because as special ed teachers, we write goals. We really have to understand our students and their needs individually in order to help them make progress. And we can't do that if we can't dig deeper into those standards and into that data. And I feel like that's where I got the buy-in. The longer we spent on the reflection piece of that data and really looking at the students individually, the better we got for actions for these teachers, and a lot of those aha moments. And we do have those moments where there might be a teacher kind of sitting outside the group a little bit and not quite there with us. But then as we do, Let's Go Learn also has the progress monitoring feature where you can click on this little button and it will graph everything, lessons that they've done to date. So then I was showing them that feature to show that, yes, these students actually using it 3 times a week, which is what we've been asking them to do, is showing that they're making growth in specific areas. So numbers and operations has been a really big target for my elementary teachers. And we just did this yesterday. We looked at the progress monitoring. So we haven't even done the next big assessment, the diagnostic, but they're able to see progress. They, this particular school I was working with used those graphs at parent conferences to show the parents, this is the specific skill we're working on. This directly relates to the IEP goal, and look at the growth that they're making in this specific area. So that's what's really, I think, giving the aha and getting the buy-in.
And I think another aha, and I don't know if it's, is the teachers are like, this cuts my work in half. Like I don't have, it takes the guesswork out of like goals. And so it even aha for me as well. Like, so if you just do this, then it will directly lead to your IEP, and you will be able to progress monitor and have explicit evidence that your student either met or didn't meet a standard. That right there in and of itself is enough for the product to sell itself, in my opinion.
Tell me, are you using the data yet for your IEP process?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
That's the big.
That was a big, if I may, that was a big piece too, was like I said, parent conferences just came. So we do progress on goals, and that used to take a long time. So a lot of teachers, we showed them how to use the sub-skill assessment that I spoke about earlier. That's about 3 to 5 questions, and how to do it over multiple trials. And they take that data and plug it right into their reports. And they're also using it at the plan reviews, the diagnostic data. And it's very informative, and it helps parents understand, because it's not just standard scores. So it really helps them to understand where their students are.
Well, Phyllis asked the question that I was going to ask Max in the questions, but one of the another question is, are the teachers able to effectively implement those math rotations that you have there?
So they are getting better at it. We have some schools that are further along than others because it is a new system that we've been teaching. but it's proving to be effective even at the middle school, where we kind of got some resistance at first, but they really like it. Yeah, I think we're getting there. I think,
Right.
again, we do this next big data poll and they really see the big true effects of this. I think that it's really going to help.
And we do have a specific data sheet for that as well. So we have our, our implementers and those that are ready to model for our teachers moving forward. So we have another set of data for which classrooms are really implementing that full-on model of small group instruction, so that when we look upon next year, because I always think big picture, right? We are able to really hone in on those specific teachers that are ready to model, and then we can do those instructional rounds so that other teachers can go see other teachers do the model. So.
We have some questions popping up in the box.
Yes, so we do have actually two questions that are kind of on the opposite spectrums. One is, do you include your pre-K in your special education planning? And then the other side is, how do you do it at the secondary or high school level? So, that elementary and middle school, you've pretty much covered that, but those kind of other ends of the spectrum, how are you implementing on those ends?
So I'm thinking, if you saw in our video, the high school, the teacher at the end was the high school teacher. So we definitely utilize it in the high school. So he was talking about how he utilizes it for the same, really pretty much in the same way that they do at the elementary, just kind of heightened. Because as you know, when you get into high school, you have students with reading deficits, you have students with huge holes in math. So while it's not like their basal curriculum, typically a high school teacher wouldn't know how to teach the basic fundamentals of reading. So with those edge lessons, the student can, in essence, learn how to read with a headphone, where other students do not have to see them doing baby work. So we've had other testimonials from even like district workers or students who, even just recently, I had a conversation. It was a casual conversation where a mother told me that her high school student was like reading at a 3rd grade level, and she consistently through our with an IEP using the program 30 minutes a day, and she kind of forgot that she was doing it. And then one day she came up to her and she was reading, and she was like, whoa, like when did this happen? And she was like, oh man. I said, put that on tape, like we need to see that, right? So so yes, we definitely utilize it in high school. Now really in high school though, we've made it more optional, because we realize it takes a little bit more of a push to get that buy-in, but really that goal monitoring and really teaching those deficit skills is really instrumental when we're looking at the high school component. Now, as far as pre-K, so overall as a district, our pre-K is a work in progress. So we have not introduced Let's Go Learn to our pre-K students. Not that we don't think it would be beneficial, but really as a goal, we like to do things in phases, and we want to make sure that we get fidelity to the program before we then start introducing it to areas where we use implementation science, and we don't want to introduce a great product to a system that's not ready to receive it, and then they think it's the system that's wrong, when really it's how we rolled it out. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, that's great. That's really helpful. So they wanted to know if the program, how you're aligning the program to the current curriculum that you're using for all students. So you mentioned that earlier, but like how is that working?
These questions excite us.
I know. Yes. I'm going to be
let me answer. I got this one. Yeah, you got it. Go.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm going to be very transparent. That was a lot of work. Okay, so we really took on our summer. So they were very excited with me, or the program specialist and teacher special assignments, when I first introduced the work in terms of how to align it with our district scope and sequence. But then they found the value as they started the work. So so we took our district scope and sequence, and it's already scheduled for the entire year. Then we took Let's Go Learn, and based on the math standards, we were able to align it with what standards are currently happening during the first instructional segment. So we made it into a Google Doc form so that it's easy for our teachers. It's literally a link that connects it to the EDGE lesson, so that when a teacher does it in small groups, they're not going through the program searching for that specific lesson. It's already linked within this lesson support series that our team has created. And Dr. Lundy or Ms. Willis, if you wanted to add anything else within that process, you can go ahead.
So like just from a district's perspective, like as a whole district, like they're doing curriculum guides. And basically, as you know, with special ed, typically you may be forgotten or not included. So Jackie and Barbie is really good at kicking in doors and saying, include us, right? And so even we present sometimes alongside our ed services department when we present to principals. So as they are presenting their scope and sequence and curriculum alignment and curriculum guides to principals and teachers, we kind of embed ourselves in there to show them how we differentiate and how we utilize our assessment piece as well as the edge lessons to support. So basically what Barbie just said, but it's crucial because really when you think of special education, a lot of times we just think about the physical disability side of it, but within my approach, like really 80% of our students on IEPs are sitting in have access to gen ed lessons. And if we don't get really good at that first instruction, and if we don't teach them how to access the core curriculum, we're not going to be setting them up for graduation. And that was kind of our buy-in to the school sites, because we told them, like, when you look at the pie chart of who your students are, so these kids are on IEPs, and these kids are actually sitting in classrooms with your gen ed teachers. So if we don't get good at differentiation and really get good at these supports that you can use, then your students are going to be consistently failing. And that was a good way to get our entry point into our school sites and have them kind of be like, oh yeah, this is impacting my overall scores, and I really should kind of work alongside the special education department to make sure that these interventions are aligned.
Great. Oh, Phyllis, you have
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
Yeah, and this may be for Dr. Lundy. So as I listen to you talk about being able to really understand the current levels of performance of your students and where they're functioning at right now in order to develop those IEPs, I know one of the issues that we're dealing with from a national perspective has to do with the issue of compensatory services as outlined by the U.S. Department of Ed. As you know, CASE believes that it's not compensatory services or compensatory education we should be engaging in, but we should be looking at where students are functioning and did we lose some progress, you know, from the pandemic time, and then where do we go from here? So my question kind of centers around, has this tool helped you in working with parents to say, maybe students are gaining faster, maybe students aren't? Are you dealing with that issue of compensatory services? Because I think other directors across the nation would like to hear, has this tool helped you with that particular aspect of what you might be dealing with in your community?
Well, yes. Another question. So the cool thing about Let's Go Learn is that they are a small organization. And so actually when the pandemic first started, they kind of kicked into gear and just, I don't want to be telling people y'all business, but they just gave us a bunch of licenses. So when we first kicked into the pandemic, we had already bought a bunch, but they told us about how it could help us with not compensatory at that time, but just kind of meeting those standards within a virtual environment. So immediately we turned it from just kind of piloting to full-blown implementation. Now, we weren't really so much focused on the data part of it at that moment, or like the strategic planning that happened over the summer. But in the beginning, we just opened it up to everybody, and we started just getting kids on. And so with that, we knew that the compensatory part was coming. And so how we sold it to our teachers immediately was like, in this virtual environment, if you put your students on here, we can capture that they're actually working on their independent lessons, and then we could utilize this as their time served, right? And so when I say time served, I mean we can utilize this as their actual minutes. And though this was a way for us to track that so that we could show that we're doing that. Then on top of that, we actually began contracting with a tutorial service. So with the tutorial, because we knew the compensatory was coming, right? So we tried to get ahead of it. So what I did was we had some tutoring partners. So with our money, we had some tutoring partners. We trained all of our tutor partners on Let's Go Learn. And we trained them all on how to use the tool. And so part of the stipulation for families was that, especially if our students were waiting for assessment, so we had a lot of students who couldn't get assessed yet. So actually we haven't even been sued for any of that, because we put them all, we gave them access to these tutors, and the tutors had to use the Let's Go Learn tool. And then we would monitor how many EDGE lessons they were doing and how much progress they were making. And so that helped us with the compensatory part. And even now, so our first, when we did our tiered like intervention, our tier 1 is, okay, what have you been utilizing your Let's Go Learn? And so we found that we actually didn't have as much regression, just because we were consistent with, now our students are already kind of low just because of the nature I kind of described our community. But like I said, over the summer, we also kept it on over the summer as well. And we allowed families to have access to it during the summer. And so now as we're coming back on, we're still utilizing some of those same processes now. And then in addition to that, with the dashboard, so that kind of prompted us to be like, we need to get a deeper dive. And so that's when we implemented the dashboard. So in looking at the dashboard, we actually have found a different kind of thing that is that some of our students are so high. So now we're like, we have a whole school where these kids are actually on IEPs, but they're showing as being proficient in both areas. So they've grown. And so now they actually have become our target. So we're going to have meetings with those individual school sites to see actually if we can exit them. Because if it's like we're actually putting them in a special program so that we can consistently use the Let's Go Learn as well as the tutoring for like to the end of the year to see that it's in their IEP as they transition from middle school, if we can actually exit them out, because maybe they have actually make the growth that they need in order to be able to hopefully exit special ed. Yes.
So I want to make a comment on the data side of this. This is what's interesting, people don't realize. If you have a really accurate assessment and you target the student's lowest gaps first, a lot of times it's not a lot of time. In 5 to 20 hours or 5 to 15, whatever it is, you can actually bring a student up years in their total score in math or reading, because those little gaps basically cripple other areas within math or reading, because they just can't bring it together. So it's interesting that when you have an accurate assessment, I'm not surprised to see that, because we've seen that with other schools. The first 10 hours of instruction is so important because it brings them up, and suddenly also other materials is now within reach. But especially when you get in secondary, 6th grade and above, if you have those little gaps, it really hurts you.
Right. And so with your older kids, because cognitively they can catch on a lot quicker, that's why it allows us, when you said if we use it at the secondary level, and that's kind of what we're selling. And then we're being very intentional about those 6 to 8 week cycles, even when we're using our outside vendors, because we have to be able to track the progress. So we have to make sure, are you using it to fidelity? Are you checking into those lessons like you're supposed to? And are we making those that progress? So even to like with parents wanting those initial assessments, like we've shown that kids actually, it really is learning loss, and it really is them not having being in school. And so when given this tool, families and parents are thankful. And then typically happy parents don't sue you, right? For that. They just want to know that you care about their kid and that you're really working hard to do what's best for them. And that's ultimately how I lead. Like, I'm going to do what's best for kids regardless of what the circumstances or situations are around us. And so when I believe in something, and so if I see a product is going to help us to meet that end goal, then I'm all in. I jump in with both feet.
There's happy parents. Oh, I'm sorry, Richard.
No, go ahead.
There's happy parents, but how about building confidence in students?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
So I know we're a little far over our end time, so I think I have one more question I want to ask, and this one here is, and this is a great operational question. How is it working with students who have accommodations or modifications? So how have you been able to adapt, the Let's Go Learn, the EDGE program, stuff like that with students with accommodations? So that's one question.
I think I understand, but Jackie, I feel like that's more on your end.
Yeah, so within the lessons and within the assessments, there's text-to-speech features. There are features that allow the students what they need. So and that's really a big one. The assessment, they can pause at any time. So they have ample amount of time to take that assessment. It saves right where they are, which has been very, very helpful, because we do like to break that down. And the lessons, same thing. They are able to pause it. They're able to come back. They can repeat the question multiple times. It does the directions over and over again. So it addresses a lot of the accommodations that they do have. Some of our computers, they do use Chromebooks for the most part. And if there's a speech to text feature. They're able to utilize that by turning it on in their Chrome bar. So we've been able to make it work for the majority of our students. I haven't come across any barriers with that.
And then we found, like, with our mod severe population, they don't use it with the same fidelity as our other students. They like the whiteboard feature. They like, even with our adult students, they like some of the edge lessons that are like at the kinder level. So we allowed them more flexibility, and we just kind of take components of the program. And the teachers find it helpful, I think, to meet some of their basic kind of academic needs within their IEP meetings. But we don't force them to sit through a whole assessment. We kind of just pull the lessons out for them and really utilize that whiteboard feature for our mod severe students.
And if I could add to that, sorry, Barbie, one of the features, and I showed you the system where we break it out into groups, and the paraprofessional does that whiteboard feature. So with our mild mod and RSP students who might have fine motor issues with like the drag and drop and just some of those features that they need support with, that's a great opportunity for them to kind of front load what they're going to see in that lesson. So then when they do it independently, they know how to use the features that are within the program. So that's been very helpful too.
Right, so they've been really utilizing it for the functional academics, and then for our moderate students that are in a moderate severe classroom, we basically utilize Let's Go Learn if they're looking into change of placements. So if they are looking into moving a student from a mod severe to a mild mod, then we really hone in on the data piece in terms of the Let's Go Learn assessment in order to justify the movement.
Okay, I think we do have more questions, but I think we have to cut it off at a certain point since we went over our allotted time. But I just want to thank all of you so much for being on this. This is so helpful because I think you really operationalized what so many districts are trying to do. Change is hard, and it's just not about having a program and good tools. It's about bringing it all together. So this is a great use case. We will be sending the video and the slides to everyone either tomorrow or the day after. So everyone who's registered and everyone who may have missed it, you'll be able to share it. I think, and also when you come to our website, we do have, right on our website, we do have a product tour, and there is a specific special education tour where you can see how the product does everything that we were talking about today, how to help with IEPs, how to set goals, how to look at classrooms, do small grouping. So Linda, you want to wrap it up? Anything else you want to add?
I want to thank you so much for your participation today, and thank everybody who is an attendee for coming to our webinar today. This has just been wonderful, and we could almost do a part 2. We could almost do an encore. There was so much to talk about today. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I would also like to extend a very special thank you to Dr. Lundy and Jacqueline and Barbie for your leadership. What you've shared today to some of our leaders across the nation is a great tool and a great example of how to make things work in a difficult time. Richard, thank you for your generosity during the pandemic to San Bernardino. I know that you and many of our great partners did reach out to a number of our school districts and help and say, how can we provide some additional resources to you? So thanks to Let's Go Learn, and thanks to Dr. Lundy and your staff for being great leaders and sharing what you did today for our listeners across the nation. Very powerful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor.